Hi, everyone. I am Lissa Fraser-Kerr, and welcome to Okay, Mom. I'm here with my data, Vanessa, also my daughter. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How about you?
I'm also fantastic-ish. Less so, but good. Yeah.
Mm.
Great. I don't know. I'm a step below fantastic because I didn't have the excellent week you did, but I'm okay because there's birds singing outside my window, so I'm happy.
Ooh. Okay. So you want to tell me about your week, or do you want me to tell you about mine?
I'll go first because mine's a lot faster because it's a lot less exciting. My week was pretty normal, pretty standard. I did get to Valley Village and get some pots for all the plants that I am collecting, which is wonderful. And yeah, I haven't else except for enjoy the outside because we're in double digits and it's sunshiny and the snow is going away and it's fantastic. I love it.
Yay, spring is sprunging.
It's sprunging. Now tell me
Yeah.
about your week because I haven't even connected with you for most of this week, and here is why. Da-da!
Because I went away all by myself. I went,
Da-da!
ta-da! I tried to figure out if I could do it. I wanted to see if I could stand myself for a week without, running home again. So I went away and I went up north and I had the place to myself.
So
And
to clarify, this was all very COVID safe. This is your summer house that you own, a big megalo mansion up north.
it's a cottage. It's little. It's not a megalo mansion. You will see it one day, I promise.
Yeah, sure. I keep being told it's not safe for me. Because of kids. It's right by the lake and it's not yet completed. Am I to understand?
True. We need railings around the deck, and it's very rocky and unsafe right now. We're still developing it. It was
Which
raw
is fair
land.
because my children are dive bombers, so they would 100% go off that deck. So it's isolated. It was just you in the woods in the lake for a week. Tell me about it. What'd you do?
Well, there was no lake. It was an ice field, and it looked like you're on another planet, a very cold planet, but it was gorgeous. There was sun every single day. There was starry nights every single night. It was so spectacular. I felt like I was living a dream. It really felt like that. I was like, the sunsets were, I can't even find the words. Everything was so beautiful. So there's still snow, lots of snow on the ground up there, but not on the roads. You could drive. It was, pretty dry. And I spent the week working, but I put music up really loud and I sang really loud and I worked on a puzzle. And it's not just a puzzle, it's The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. And all I'm going to say is that there are many variations of blue in that puzzle. And pretty much that's it. A little tiny bit of yellow, but everything else is blue. So it's an ongoing puzzle. It's going to probably be there half done or 3/4 of the way done, probably for the next 10 years. So that's sort of a threat to Jay because he doesn't like it. It's like, why are you going to move this stuff? It takes up too much room, but it's good. It's good for your brain, right? It's a puzzle. So neuroplasticity. I also didn't have to cook. I just had lean cuisines all week.
Oh my gosh.
And I brought everything up, so I didn't have to spend lots of time in a grocery store. I just basically isolated. I texted the neighbor to let him know I was there. I did hang out with his dog. Ava is part of the family usually, so she just comes over for turkey and sliced turkey breasts, and she's fun and hangs out. And she was napping in the sunshine, and it was great. That was my only companion for only part of one day. So the rest of the time, it was me, myself, and I. And I thought it would be awful to be alone, but I adored it. I think I like me.
Oh, I like that. That's nice. That's nice to find this time in your life.
Yeah. But maybe it's more I don't like other people, but I think it's more, no, I think I'm finally starting to like me.
Oh, see, I decided that I don't like other people at a very young age. So I've already come to all of these conclusions. But I'm very excited for you because you joked for a long time that your solitary confinement wouldn't be, you didn't know how long you were going to last. You kept joking that you were going to come home early.
Yep.
So I'm very excited for you. I'm very happy that you like you and that you enjoyed your time. I'm a little jealous. By a little, I mean like oozing jealousy that you had a silent house with no one around, no one touching you, no screaming was happening. You got to do whatever you wanted. That's the dream. Is that one
It
day
really
when I'm
is.
searching for something, that I will also be in my megalo mansion summer home in the middle of nowhere, child free.
Well, it took me 60 years, so hang in
Mm-hmm.
there. You'll get
I'm
there.
halfway.
I tried to feel bad. Like I tried to feel guilty and I couldn't rouse it up. I just couldn't get it
Mm-mm.
out.
No,
I was like, no, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to actually just enjoy.
that's good because you've done your time and you are still kind of doing your time
Oh
with
yeah.
an adult child in the basement and a very needy adult daughter who now has children who messages you a minimum 12 times a day and then will call you to be like, how come you're not responding to my messages? How can you be busy and not focusing on me and my life all day long?
Well, and that's the other part, right? When I'm up there, it's very difficult to communicate because you're limited with data and that's our story and we're going to stick to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I will never
Yeah,
communicate with you when I'm up there.
no, I keep hearing stories of I have to sit at McDonald's to make Zoom calls. I can't answer your FaceTime.
Yeah.
So I put up with it, and you get to enjoy solitary confinement, and I'm in my own solitary confinement because there's no one listening to me complain all week long.
Well, I think you could probably load it down onto the kids. They won't know what you're talking about.
No, they just tell me to be better,
Uh-huh.
be nice to people. Ugh. What 3-year-old encourages someone to be nice to people? That's what I want to know. Mine. I hate people, and she's going around going, no, 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 be nice to people.
Well, she has a good heart and she must take after not you.
No, we still don't know who it is that she takes after. There's no
Yeah.
one that's nice to people around.
Wait, you can steal my line. You can steal my line. And that's, we're not sure who the mother is.
Yeah, that tracks with her. She looked nothing like me. The other one's a mirrored image, just a copy paste. But the first one, no, I barely was even there. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I find this really interesting because I've been looking up the 5 love languages. Well, I haven't. I've known about them for a long time through my therapist, but I've learned something interesting over this past week that I kind of want to like pick your brain about a little. So, there are 5 love languages, and there's different ways that we receive love and that we give love. And your love language for receiving and giving don't need to be the same one. So the love languages are gifts or tokens of affection, quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, and acts of service. So looking at these 5, do you think would be your love language of how you best receive love?
Acts of service.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Because with you, if I were to do the dishes, the gods would be shining down rainbows, butterflies, unicorns, and feeling all kinds of love.
Mm-hmm.
So, interestingly enough, because mine is quality time, that's how I receive love, is people spending quality time, phones away, not just staring at a TV, but actually connecting with people. And I think that's why I like riding in cars with people so much, because there's nothing else to do once you're done singing all of the songs. And what's interesting is that your self-destructive behavior is a reflection of your love language.
Okay,
So
wait. You have to say that again. Your self?
your self-destructive behavior is a reflection or in relation to your love language. So my self-destructive behavior, which I know well because #therapy, is that I shut down communication. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, if anything's going awry in my life, I don't text people, I don't call people, I don't communicate with people. With quality time being how I receive love, I am shutting down the way for me to receive love because most of, if not all of my people that I receive love from are long distance. So by cutting communication, it means that I'm unable to receive love. So it keeps me in the state that I'm in. So I found that very interesting because I wanted to see if that was the same across the board. So what would you say is your self-destructive behavior? You're going to have to think deep on this. I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Well, and I mean, I could fill the alphabet if I had to. Let me see. I would probably, I'm very self-destructive. I know that. And I know it's through things like not eating properly, not taking care of myself. Like I'm just torturing myself, drink too much wine, eat too much good food or bad food. And I do shut down too, though. And yeah, so if acts of service is my love language, then what you're saying is not doing acts of service to myself or for myself would be my self-destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm. Like that would be the correlation is that like if you're punishing yourself with eating, because eating is very much you're fueling your body and you choose to fuel it with healthy things or unhealthy things depending on how you're feeling, right? Not you particularly, just anybody. So if you're physically shutting down, then that would be closing down that tunnel for acts of service for yourself. Does that make sense? Maybe it's a stretch.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not applicable to everybody.
Well, I'm
I
wondering.
think also there's a huge sense of, this is going to make me sound really hoity-toity, but I think there is a big, you have to really understand yourself and be self-aware to be able to depict what your love language is with certainty and also to recognize your self-destructive behaviors. I mean, I only know because the therapist told me. This isn't like some big revelation. I'm amazing. I know everything about myself. Is I had a guy actually say, hey, you do this. That's a problem.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, now, processing that, acts of service to an extreme could also be my self-destructive behavior. Does that make sense?
Like giving acts of service? Or
yeah. Yes, to the extreme. So, I wanted to work at a food bank, then I had to run the food bank and I was running myself ragged and ended up in the hospital with a heart thing. So, and I don't think it's directly related to that. I think it was from just pushing myself constantly. Like I had to do it. And it was like driven. And I think that, that's part of the binge thing that I, can also have where I do something to the extreme till I can't do it anymore. And I never go back. I just go on to the next thing and put myself 100% through that, whatever the next thing is, and then give up.
What's really interesting is that I had noted that about you. And
you're taking notes about me?
I'm writing stuff down, man.
Oh, no.
No, because I mean, in a sense, apples don't fall far from the tree. So a lot of things that I've noticed about your habits and behaviors have been discussed within the realm of how does that relate to me? What have I picked up? What is naturally mine or that I inherited from you? That's one thing that we've talked about is that because I also go through stages where I'm really passionately into something. And then one day I just drop it and I'm like, nah, I don't feel like that anymore. And what's coming to mind to me right now is alphabets. Because there was a time in our lives where you could not function without the cereal alphabets. Do you remember that?
Alphabets, yes. Oh no, I'm
Alphabets.
totally aware. They changed the formula, so it doesn't taste the same anymore. But yeah, obsessively, yeah.
Yeah, because
Hate them.
that's something that I do as well, especially with food, and that's what I'm trying to correct currently on my healthy lifestyle. But back to the before we move on, back to the love languages. How would you say that you give love? Because that's one thing that I'm not entirely confident in my answer.
For me, I'm very encouraging of other people. That's something I make a conscious effort to do.
So words of affirmation.
I don't touch people.
No, me neither.
No, and I'm not. Okay, quality time. I don't like to give my time away. I hoard it. That's terrible, but I'm not very good at that. I would say, oh, sorry, you want to say something?
Well, I was gonna say because you're great at giving your time for work. If it's work based, you will go. I've bugged you for years about your boundaries because if you get an email at 9 p.m. at night, you're like, oh, hang on, I just have to read this. I'm like, no, you don't. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're sitting on the couch talking. Put your computer away. When you're not working, you will spend time with yourself. You enjoy doing that. But you do have a close group of girlfriends that you will set time apart for. If it's important enough to you, you will. But I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're the type of person that has to plan that in. Like almost like prepare for it. I know if people do a drive-by drop-in, you're okay with that. But for an actual like sit down drinks in the back patio or anything like that, it's usually like it could be same day, but I find that you would always give me a few hours warning, which means that you require a few hours warning at least.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because I don't think I'm consistent that way. I think sometimes it's better if it's spontaneous. And no, I don't like people just dropping by. I've never liked that.
Oh, interesting, because you fake it so well.
No. Don't drop in on me, people. Just don't.
All the neighborhood ladies are just clutching their pearls.
No, they're yeah, because that's the neighborhood I'm in. Clutching our fake pearls. Yeah, we're really pretentious that way. No, I would say spontaneous works for me if it's like, hey, want to go for a walk? Yep. Like in the moment, yes, and I'll go. And it might turn into something else. We might end up, on a patio somewhere. I mean, this is all pre-COVID, but it just depends because I think I'm still very moody. And some days it's like, don't even talk to me. Other days it's like, I need to talk to people. I need to be with them. So I think I'm very inconsistent. Sorry.
It sounds like a Gemini.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm just flaky and I admit it, and that's okay. You don't have to like me, but you do. You have to like me.
I'm fine. I'm not okay.
Well, one of the things that I have found to be a little bit of a revelation, I try to be self-aware, but not to the point where I annoy myself. But the one person I've been listening to a lot is Brene Brown, and she has a podcast called Unlocking Us, which I love. Like she talks about everything about the mind. She talks about shame. She talks about she's a shame researcher, and all her social work skills go into researching social situations and just people's habits. And she found that shame was something that just kept coming up and coming up. So she focused on it. I mean, everybody has something like that in them. And I'm wondering if the tie into the self-destructive behavior is based on shame.
Interesting. I would say so, because I don't like to admit when things are going poorly. I'm a very hindsight talker, that after everything's said and done and wrapped up neatly and tied with a bow, now I'll talk about it and I'll tell you all of the details. But when I'm going through it, I'll lie through my teeth. I won't tell anyone really what's going on or anything like that. That may have to do with shame, because I've also learned recently that I exhibit a lot of signs of a perfectionist, which is ironic because I'm incredibly lazy. So
are you sure you're not a Gemini? No, just kidding.
I might be. I mean, I'm a Taurus. I think it's a pretty Taurusy thing. I know you hate the astrology talk, but as millennials, some of us just picked it up.
I don't hate it. I just can't. I can't live by what my horoscope says every day. It's like, really?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. See, I don't read daily horoscopes, but I do read personality traits and things like that. But yes, I think I would agree with you that it is kind of shame-based with my self-destructive behavior, because I don't want to admit that I can't handle something or that something isn't going absolutely great.
Well, interesting, because that actually sounds like the other thing she talks about, which is more about being vulnerable, putting yourself in a situation where you're deathly scared or afraid of failing.
No, hard pass. I cannot. I can't stress it enough. I hate being vulnerable. Most people find that ironic, because I will talk about a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But again, it's the hindsight, because once it's behind me, I feel nothing about it. I don't feel shame. It's at that point, it's just facts, right? Like, that's what happened and I've processed it. I've moved on. So now you get to know everything and you can process it on your own time, because I don't care. For instance, me talking about postpartum depression, I'm not feeling that anymore. So it's not a vulnerable space for me. I can share it because it's facts. It happened. It's history. And I've moved on from it now. So I understand it. I've processed it. I can talk about it. And we're good. If you were to like pick a problem from my daily life right now, I would just shut down and be like, no, hard pass. I'm not talking about it. That's vulnerability. Gross.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was long-winded, but that's how I feel.
No, and I mean, come on. I lived with you when you were a teenager. This is not a new thing for you.
I've been like this for a long time. There's certain things that I just can't change. I've tried a lot, but I just can't.
Well, but I don't mind changing. I was just going to say, like, I do believe it's important to work on yourself. If there's something that you don't like about yourself, I think it's a good thing to make that attempt. But I would say that's also a point of denial, right? That can come up at any time. Like, oh, I care. Oh, I just can't care anymore. And I think that we're probably programmed to only be able to handle so much.
It's the fork theory. Have you heard about this?
No.
Oh, I got so many theories. I've been online way too much lately. So essentially it's this theory. It's a way for people who are neurodivergent to kind of explain how much they can handle.
Oh, wait. Neurodivergent. You have to explain that.
Oh, I'm going to have to Google it so I do it justice, because it's one of those terms that I don't want to offend anyone by using it incorrectly.
Yeah, because I'm going to assume that it's part of the movies. Like the next would be neuroinsurgent, divergent.
I actually really enjoyed those movies. I know they're...
I did too.
They're supposed to be for teens, but the books were good too. Okay, so Neurodiversity refers to variation in the human brain regarding sociability, learning, attention,
What?
mood, and other mental functions, was coined in 1998 by sociologist Judy Singer, who helped popularize the concept along with journalist Harvey Bloom.
Okay, so go back again. It's the brain.
Yes. So it refers to variation in the human brain. So
Okay.
whenever someone says the term, oh, that's not normal, it's kind of questioning what is normal. What is normal? Why do we consider someone with autism not normal? Someone with OCD not normal? Someone with ADHD not normal? So, yeah, that's my understanding of it, is that it's a term for anyone that, if we're not being PC, would be considered not normal.
Okay. So just to throw in Brother Jay's theory is that they call it a spectrum because we're all on it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. So the fork theory, this also, keep in mind, this was a Tumblr post. So this isn't science. This isn't like a proven theory as far as I'm aware.
So you're saying it's BS?
No, I'm not saying it's BS. I'm saying it's a
Okay.
really interesting way to look at how much a person can handle. So the spoon theory, you've heard of the spoon theory with people with chronic pain and chronic illness?
No.
So the spoon theory is that each day you have a certain amount of spoons and each activity takes a certain amount of spoons away. So you wake up with the day with 16 spoons, for instance. Showering takes away 5. Making breakfast takes 2. And that's kind of how they look at tasks.
Oh, task oriented. Okay.
Yeah. So, something big like working for 4 hours would take 11 spoons. Now you only have X amount of spoons left for your energy or for your tolerance for the day in terms of pain or what have you, right? So this is kind of framed around that, but it's a little different. So the phrase, stick a fork in me, I'm done.
Right.
In terms of like vegetables, they're cooked, they're ready, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
The fork theory is that one has a fork limit. So that is, you can probably cope okay with 1 fork stuck in you, maybe 2 or 3, but at some point you will lose your mind if 1 more fork happens. A fork could range from being hungry or having to pee to getting a new bill or new diagnosis of illness. So it could go from very small bit of news or something very large. There are lots of different sizes of forks, and volume versus quantity means that the fork limit is not absolute. So I might be able to deal with 20 tiny little escargot fork annoyances, such as a hangnail or slightly suboptimal pants, but not even one you poked my trigger on purpose because you think it's fun to see me melt down pitchfork.
Okay. That's good.
So, yeah. So you could be able to handle that your feet are cold or that your nose is plugged up, but you can't do both at the same time. So going back to this Tumblr post, she says that her husband describes the situation as, it may seem weird that I just get up and leave the conversation to go to the bathroom, but you just dumped a new financial burden on me and I already had to pee. And going to the bathroom is the fork that I can get rid of the fastest.
Wow.
So
okay, you've got to put this on the blog post so people can read this.
I will share it. And then the response to this is, I like this. And also I like the low key point that you may be able to cope with bigger forks by finding little ones you can remove quickly. A combination of time, focus, and reduction to small stressors that can allow you to focus on the larger stressor in a constructive way. So instead of shutting down, you handle what you can control in that moment. And then you process the big thing that you just got. And I feel like this is one big compilation of 2020/2021 is that we're all stuck with this giant pitchfork and all these little forks keep happening. But because they don't compare to the pitchfork, we're just pulling little escargot forks out saying everything's fine, this is fine. But really, like, we're all struck with this giant pitchfork.
Yeah, we're getting forked. But
Yeah.
I feel like the visual I have is that we wake up with these forks already jabbed into us, and it's a matter of which ones can we take out. I don't think we're accumulating. I think we're actually starting with them just because it's 2021 after 2020, and that it's a matter of, okay, I can deal with this little thing and this little thing. And I think for you being a mom, you wake up and the forks are already in you. It just, it's like, okay, what can I tolerate? What can I get rid of? Keep that pitchfork as far away from me as possible, so that I don't have to deal with it.
Well, and I'm finding the terrible threes in a pandemic is a really interesting issue I never considered I would have to cope with.
I'm sure nobody has.
No, and I'm sure everyone's at a stage with their kid. Like, everyone's dealing with something at this point because we were all dealing with stuff beforehand, and now we've got the giant panorama above us that we're all dealing with, right? And I mean, I don't have to deal with online learning, which, thank the good heavens, I couldn't do it. But I will say 1.5 and 3 at the same time is a curve. I would say that's like those serving forks for salad, like the big wooden one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say combined, that's one of those, like jabbed in the thigh.
Oh, thigh. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I could see that being, like a dessert fork and a dinner fork, with the two sizes.
Yeah. And I think that's how we should ask people from now on. Like, instead of how are you?
How forked are you?
How forked are you? How many forks are you dealing with? And can I help with one? Can I help you cope with a fork? Would that lighten your load and make things easier?
Yeah. Can I be your fork in the road?
There's a lot of places we could go with it. But in terms of all of my issues and what I consider my reasonings for being neurodivergent, I really like this theory. I think that it's really interesting and it puts things in a different perspective where it actually tangibly makes the issues that you're dealing with easier to cope with, because you can look at something and say, okay, that's a little fork. I can remove that. I can do that. Like something as easy as holding your bladder. Well, now you're uncomfortable. Like, for instance, we had a socially distanced visit with my in-laws and we were outside. Party? And we were outside and it was going really well. I was really enjoying my time until I realized, because I was wearing fake Uggs and we were in a really muddy field, that the water had seeped through and my feet were wet and they were cold and wet. And we weren't close to leaving where we were anytime soon. And everyone else had wellies on or rain boots. So they were not getting their feet wet. And by the time we returned to the house, both my children were losing their minds because they were off of their routine. And I wanted to scream into the ether because my feet were shriveled and they had that painful feeling when they've been cold and wet for too long and you're standing on them and putting pressure. And it was like the pins and needles, and suddenly I couldn't focus on what anybody was saying. I wanted to get out of that situation as fast as I possibly could. I'm standing on my deck. I want to be in the house with a towel around my feet, and I couldn't cope with anything else. And then when the girls started screaming, I was like, okay, well, that's our sign. Bye. And like the second my feet were dry, I felt awful. And I was like, I should have like, hey, do you guys want a drink for the road? Do you want, like the hostess part, but I could not focus on anything other than my feet. And I was like, that was the big fork in the moment. There's nothing else that I could do because that's all I was thinking of. Isn't that wild?
I don't think so. I think, we're meant to survive, right? And our body tells us if there's something not right, you have to address it. It's like getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
That's true.
Yeah. And then, but okay, so some of those things are self-imposed. Some of those things are acquired as a surprise. Some of these things just, knock at your door and it's like, hello. I'm not talking about people visiting. I'm talking about the problems that the forks,
Hmm. Yeah.
the stabbiness and why they're
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
It's like getting a letter in the mail saying, hey, surprise, we found you. You owe us thousands of dollars. Well, now suddenly that's the biggest fork that you have, and you weren't anticipating that on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So all the littler, smaller forks have to be either dealt with and removed, or the big fork has to be dealt with or removed. Like, I guess you could pick and choose what best serves you. I forget what we were talking about before the fork theory.
Well, we were still talking about, not so much self-destructive behavior, but the neuroallegiance. That's it. Neuroallegiant. No, we weren't talking about that.
No, we were talking about how we give our love, how we give our love away.
And then we talked about that, but then we also talked about how shame and vulnerability.
Right. That's where we were. You're such a good host.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have to write it down. No, I'm just kidding.
So do you feel vulnerable at times? Like, when you feel vulnerable, do you just dive in and say, okay, we're doing this?
Yeah. With a lot of fear. Always. I'm not a natural risk taker. I see you as being a little bit more that way because you're more entrepreneurial. You're willing to take things on because you know the alternative is having to deal with other people. Whereas I'm more team-based. I like that. And if I have to take a risk, it's usually pretty fearful for me for something new. But I'll do it. I will do it.
I think the difference is that you care more. I don't care about much.
Like, don't flatter yourself.
I'm kind of dead inside. No, I just kind of like, when it comes to things, like I'm the type of person who seeks external validation, and I know that. But when it comes to fears of failure, I don't have that. Because in my head, because I don't tell people what's going on in the moment, like they won't even know that I failed at something until way after the fact when I'm like, oh yeah, I tried this and I sucked at it.
But I think that's typical of most people. I know I say that a lot, but I do believe that everybody has fear of some sort, and that we're all vulnerable to being awakened in the middle of the night and saying, I can't believe I did that. Or you're visited by a former memory of something that was where you failed. Or you can start, with your little laundry list of all the things you did wrong the day before or the previous 10 years. Or if you're self-analytical, then those things just don't go away. You will constantly have that loop in your brain until you feel that you have succeeded at something. And then it sort of colors things more to that promising side where you're like, hey, maybe I'm not a loser. Maybe I'm not always failing. Maybe you get some wins. But I think therapy is probably a good way to start to recognize that stuff, because I think everything is based on, cognitive behavioral therapy is, probably one of the better ways to learn things. That's just my opinion about ourselves.
Well, one of my fears is that I fear my therapist is retiring soon. And that scares me because I've kind of had him as a PRN for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I found him after my dad passed away.
Mm-hmm. What's a PRN?
As needed in the medical field.
Oh, okay.
I'm just now realizing, ew, that's something to unpack. I'm having a weird moment because I found him after my dad passed away, and he was in his 50s and is now close to retiring, and he's a white man, much like my father, same age group.
Oh.
Ooh, I'm going to have to unpack that. I wonder if he already has. That's interesting. If you guys have a therapist, let me know who they look like in your life and who they're modeled after. That's weird.
I had a therapist who was little, like she was short, and she would sit in her office chair and her feet didn't quite touch the floor. but she was mighty. She had a big personality and had lots of ideas, and she was wonderful. I only saw her for a very short time, but not short being the operative. No. But she was lovely, but she resembled nobody that I knew.
Almost pretty short.
Yeah, okay, but no. She was not a mother figure. She was not old enough to be a mom, and she was, I don't know. Like, she to me was a completely separate non-family person or friend person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what you needed. Maybe you needed to find someone that resembled 0% anybody that you knew.
Right. Well, you don't audition therapists. I think usually they're assigned, or, you just start seeing someone and you just go with it. I don't know. I guess some people are fussier.
Well,
they might want to
yeah.
audition
I mean,
them,
I went through, well, because it's all about your relationship, right? Like, you have to feel comfortable with somebody. You can't just, there's give and take there. And it's also how I view job interviews. Like, if you are going to an interview for a new job, you are just as much interviewing them as they are you, because you don't want to just get a job for the sake of getting a job. But that just may be me. I just might have high standards.
I don't have that same experience, because it's like listening to actors. They have to go and audition for a part every time, and they might get more popular. They might become stars over time because people, like their look, or they just happen to be the flavor of the month, but they'll still keep trying to audition for new and new jobs. And when you work in freelance, you're doing the same thing. I used to say, oh, you're only as good as your last job, but that didn't even matter. Like, you just had to try and get that job. And whether it was a good job or not, you still needed to work. So, I mean, that circling back to that, I never put work second. I think that was something that was just drilled into me from birth. The same thing about picking a career over love, or a career over anything else. And maybe that's an act of service. Maybe working for a living is an act of service. And
well, yeah, because you're giving to that, right? Like, that is an act of service entirely in itself. That's really interesting, though, because you put work first, and any job is a job. Whereas for me, with work, so I used to work in vet clinics, and there's been about 5 or 6 that I turned down because the atmosphere, I was like, this is all too familiar. I know how this is going to go. This isn't the place for me, because vet clinics can be very catty. I remember the first time I turned down a
sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Better
Thank
than
you for
doggy.
Picking that up. I remember the first
job
time
is like that.
But it's very, and I don't want to say it, because some of the best friends that I've made through working in vet clinics, but in the wrong atmosphere, because it's very woman based. There's a lot of ladies that are working in vet clinics. Because of that, it can go sideways pretty quickly. I've been in a few different clinics where it has gone sideways, and the professionalism isn't the standard. That's what I'll say. But again, some of my greatest friends I've ever had, and still do have, I've met within vet clinics. But I still remember the first time I turned down a vet and I said, I don't want to work for you. He tried 18 different ways to figure out a way for me to be in his clinic. And I was like, no, I've seen this atmosphere before. This isn't going to serve me. I know the mental load of working in an atmosphere like that. And I'm not putting my mental health on the line for some reception job. I'm just not doing it again. And he was shocked. And I was like, listen, my working interview was just as much me trying to figure out your place as it was you trying to figure out me. And I didn't like what I saw. So no, I'm not coming to work for you.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I think for him,
it was about the done that.
See, and that's interesting to me.
I would never do that.
But I mean, at the time, I had a job. It wasn't like I was, I needed the money, or like it would have been a step up to what I was making at that moment. But at the same time, I knew that, no, this isn't the right place for me. It's not going to be a good fit. I could see from the person who is running the working interview, never get along with you. And I'm not going to put myself in a situation where for 8 hours a day, I have to get along with you. I would much rather keep my current job and keep looking.
And I'm so the opposite. I will
Are
take
you
the
horrified right
worst
now?
possible. I will take the worst possible job. I will weigh them out and go, this one's going to be worse. I'm going to run toward it. Just
Nah, ain't
wow.
nobody got time, Mom. And that's like, but that also ties into I hate everybody and I should work for myself. But the thing is that within that working interview, she took the opportunity twice to humiliate rather than teach. And I was like, no, I'm not, I don't stand for this.
Did you
And
go?
I was yeah, I did. I went, no, shut it down, cut it out. We're not doing this today.
Stick a fork in it.
Yeah.
You're done.
And the best part is that the current job that I had, I was getting yelled at daily by my boss. And I still preferred that over what this girl was doing because I was like, no, I was still a contractor at the job that I was doing. I was contracted to do the job. Oh. But yeah, I chose the guy yelling at me every day because it was a contract position that I knew essentially I worked for myself in theory. I still chose that over this. And I'm really interested to learn if that's a generational thing or if that's a priority thing because you prioritize work and I don't. For me, it's just a paycheck. I will not answer my phone, my cell phone. If it's a number I don't know, I 1000% will not answer it. And if I do know the number, 99% of the times I won't answer it even then because I need to be in the mental load to receive that phone call. I've got to be in the mood. And like all these things have to align. But if you pay me, I will be the best receptionist you've ever had. And my phone etiquette is top notch. I'm amazing on the phone, but there has to be a paycheck involved. Like I'm a fantastic worker and I know that. I'm a great worker. But at the same time, I won't work for you if I don't want to. I worked at the wine rack for 4 hours. And I came back the next day with the keys and the binder and all the stuff I was supposed to know. And I was like, I don't think so. Here you go. You can have this back.
Wow.
If it doesn't serve you, what's the point? I'm not going to spend all my time investing in this if it's not going to give back. Whereas you are the person who is like, I will spend all my time and then some and receive nothing in return.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I pressure you so much with boundaries. Because I'm like, you got to do it, Mom. Like, don't answer your phone. Don't answer your emails. Like, they can wait until tomorrow. Can't. It's sitting there. I have to read it.
Yes. Well, and you want to feel like you're responsive and responsible, when you're being paid to be. The weirdest part is when you're in a contract position, you're constantly feeling like you're working. So, yes. And for boundaries, I have tried to pull back a bit. It hasn't worked yet.
Oh. I'm so excited for you.
I've got this ideal, but it just, it isn't right.
Alrighty, well, that's all the time we have this week. So thank you everyone for listening, and we hope you learned absolutely nothing. And we will see you next Wednesday at 1. Love you, mean it. Bye.